Thank you all for coming tonight. We'll get started in about 5 minutes. Thank you. Hi, Liz. Good evening, and thank you all for being here tonight. It looks like a good turnout both online and in person. Before we get started, I'd like to say thank you to all of my colleagues here tonight who helped me pull this presentation and meeting together. It was most certainly a team effort, and I am eternally grateful for your support. My name is Amanda Stoltz, and I am the Homeless Services Manager for the City of Sunnyvale. I started in this role in January 2024 and have been working in housing and homeless services for almost 20 years. I'm passionate about creating programs and services for our most vulnerable residents. I'm excited to be in this role and spearheading the Safe Parking Study. As we get started, I'll ask that we hold off on questions. A key part of this meeting will be the opportunity to provide feedback and questions for us through a feedback exercise we'll hold after my presentation. Next slide. Slight technical difficulty. Okay. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to provide some education on safe parking. At this time, we are exploring a new ordinance that would allow safe parking programs to operate in Sunnyvale. We are not developing a safe parking site at this time. Throughout this presentation, you'll notice that I'm going to interchangeably use safe parking and safe RV parking. We'll get more into that later, but I wanted to acknowledge these terms up front. The only difference between the two programs is that safe parking allows passenger vehicles and oversized vehicles, and safe RV parking focuses on individuals residing in RVs. Here's the roadmap for our conversation. We'll start with the background and history on why we're here. We'll talk about safe parking and what it is and what it isn't. Go through program criteria we'll bring to council in a fall study session, and end with our timeline of events. We'll then have an opportunity for all of you to provide feedback. During this presentation, we want you to be thinking of the following questions. What benefits do you see with allowing safe parking? What concerns do you have about safe parking, and what aspects of safe parking appeal to you? We've got a packed agenda, so without further ado, let's get started. Next slide. First off, we'll discuss some of the background on why we're here and homelessness in Sunnyvale. Next slide. The idea of studying safe parking is a direct result of the 2020 housing strategy, which included substantial public outreach. While the strategy was adopted in 2020, the safe parking study is just kicking off now because I just started in January. The city didn't previously have a role dedicated to homeless services until they approved my position last year. Next slide. In mid-July 2023, the county released city-specific data from the January 2023 point-in-time count of people experiencing homelessness. We have 151 sheltered unhoused individuals. Sheltered unhoused means those living in emergency shelters, interim housing, transitional living programs, and domestic violence shelters. There are 320 unsheltered, unhoused individuals in Sunnyvale as of 2023. Unsheltered homeless means those who are living on the street, in their cars, and other places not meant for human habitation. Next slide. This chart shows by household type who is experiencing homelessness in the city of Sunnyvale. Youth describes transitional aged youth between the ages of 18 and 24. Families with children describes families with children under the age of 18. And single adults defines adults 25 and over with no minor children. Next slide. Some additional data that the Santa Clara County Office of Supportive Housing pulled for us shows data for 452 households affiliated with the City of Sunnyvale who completed a VI SPDAT assessment between July 1st, 2023 to May 31st, 2024, indicating that they were experiencing homelessness sometime during that timeframe. This data suggests a need for safe parking in Sunnyvale and demonstrates that there are more individuals and households are sheltering in their vehicles than in other locations. Next slide. This data was collected through the 2023 City of Sunnyvale Windshield Tour of RVs conducted by our Environmental Services Department as an internal survey. It should be noted that not all counted RVs may contain persons who are experiencing homelessness. Getting accurate counts of local vehicular homelessness is difficult because people residing in their vehicles have both greater mobility and a strong desire to remain invisible. Next slide. Many people choose to rely on vehicles as a form of shelter when they experience homelessness if they already have access to or are able to purchase a vehicle. Inability to afford rent, displacement from natural disasters are major drivers of vehicular homelessness. Pandemic-related social distancing, which resulted from either decreased shelter capacity or perceptions that emergency shelter was unsafe, may also have contributed to increases in vehicular homelessness. Vehicles offer more protection for personal belongings than shelters in many cases, leading to a preference to reside in one's vehicle over a shelter setting. Others may resort to living in a vehicle because it's perceived as safer than congregate shelter or because it better meets their family's needs. Some shelters, for instance, do not allow people to the shelter with their pets, partners, or older children. Next slide. Vehicle dwelling can have a negative impact on the health and safety of vehicle dwellers. While vehicles provide a form of shelter, vehicle dwellers still lack consistent access to bathrooms, showers, and waste disposal. When you live in close quarters with little to no ventilation, you're more susceptible to illnesses like the cold and flu. And if you already have a chronic illness, living in your car can worsen it. When you don't have a safe place to call home, it can be difficult to relax, feel like you're in control of your life, and can be incredibly isolating. This can lead to or worsen anxiety and depression. Storing personal belongings in visible display in a vehicle may increase the risk of break-ins, posing a safety risk to both the vehicle owner and surrounding neighborhoods. Safe parking programs provide secure places for people sheltering in their vehicles to park and sleep overnight, provide basic sanitary services, and typically connect individuals to a range of social services, and eliminates environmental and public health impacts. Safe parking programs are relatively new intervention within the homelessness servicescape. The concept was pioneered by New Beginnings in Santa Barbara, California, which opened its first lot in 2004 and now operates 24 lots with 133 total spaces. As housing prices continue to skyrocket nationally, heavily impacted states such as California are seeing people move into their vehicles as an option of last resort. In response, safe parking programs have opened in areas most affected by growing housing precarity and where the weather typically permits year-round residency in vehicles. In 2021, 43 communities across the nation offered a safe parking program, 93% of which were located on the West Coast. The safe parking program concept has been adopted or piloted locally by a number of cities such as Saratoga, Cupertino, Campbell, Palo Alto, Mountain View, San Jose, and Fremont. Typical services offered at safe parking sites include case management, which is a key component. The case manager actively assists participants in overcoming barriers to housing and/or steady employment, working with them to find and secure stable housing, and ultimately help them get off their feet. Services provided can also include connecting clients to healthcare, addiction treatment, and other public programs and resources. Other services and amenities commonly include funds for car repairs, licensing, housing deposits, relocation, power hookups, charging stations, and meals. Restrooms are generally required amenities. Whether they are provided through a mobile unit or participants are able to access an on-site building that includes a restroom. Laundry and showers are amenities more commonly found at programs that operate 24/7. Waste management includes trash and black water from RVs and is an important component to these programs to ensure the sites stay clean. Some sites may function with an overnight or on-call operator. Others have a staff member during all operating hours. Some programs work with local law enforcement agencies. Some may hire on-site security, and others rely on self-governance. Security can be one of the largest costs of a safe parking program, which is why many cities have looked at roving security, visiting multiple sites each night and cost sharing between sites, or self-governance, where parkers report any issues that occur when the operator is not on site. These are some of the best practice operating standards that have been identified. They have been found to minimize negative impacts such as noise, cleanliness, and crime. Programs operating 24/7 tend to have more robust staffing patterns where staff can assist participants with housing, basic needs, employment, and other critical needs during normal operating hours. Additionally, stress is minimized when participants don't need to find somewhere to park during the day. Flex spaces are set aside parking spaces found at RV parking sites and allow RV dwellers who also own a commuter car for getting around to work or town to be able to park their commuter car there as well. Programs that can serve passenger vehicles and oversized vehicles create more opportunities to serve unhoused residents. Jurisdictions who have implemented safe parking often include a good neighbor policy. It outlines what is expected by the program operators they manage the site. Program operators often include a good neighbor language and program contracts in order to set behavior expectations and accountability with participants in the program. Program policies often include expectations for vehicle operations, driver's license, and insurance. Some programs work with participants to secure these items, as denying participation for lacking them might exclude individuals and families most in need of this assistance. These program policies also often include a policy on quiet hours. For site control, nearly all parking programs are referral-based. Guests cannot just show up. Sure. I'm not taking questions, but I will go back to that. So screening procedures is specifically where, let me go back to that. Screening procedures is in relation to program operators having specific guidelines and criteria, and before they allow someone into the program, they typically would go through that. So sometimes that is background checks that they might be looking at. Other programs might not do background checks because they don't want to exclude people. So it varies from program to program, but there generally is some type of screening procedure a program operator will do before allowing a household into the program. There might be eligibility guidelines as well that they're looking into and ensuring that that household meets the eligibility criteria of the program. Safe parking programs are intended to assist those who are experiencing homelessness with getting back on their feet through case management and support, which is why it does not serve those who choose to live in their RVs permanently or those who may be temporarily working here and living outside of the Bay Area. These parking programs are intended to be temporary in nature, offering time-limited assistance to participants with the hope of connecting them with permanent housing or other interventions during their stay. Safe parking programs differ from RV parks in that safe parking programs do not need to adhere to the California State Mobile Home and Special Occupancy Park Acts because participants are not tenants. Program stays vary, but are commonly 90 days to 6 months, with the ability for program participants to request extensions if they are working on self-sufficiency goals. Success rates of getting participants into interim or permanent housing depends on a number of factors, including how many shelter or housing programs are available locally for participants, how high the cost of local housing is, and whether a participant is eligible for shelter or housing programs. Some participants don't qualify for shelter or certain housing programs if their income is too high or they do not have mental or physical health issues. Next up, I'll share about 2 safe parking programs in Palo Alto and Mountain View. The City of Mountain View adopted a safe parking ordinance in 2019. The city, in partnership with the County of Santa Clara Office of Supportive Housing, currently operates the largest safe parking program in the county. Program participation preferences are families with students in Mountain View schools, in Mountain View school districts, those who live and work in Mountain View, older adults, and people with disabilities. Terabella, Shoreline Lot B, and Evelyn Lot allow oversized vehicles and passenger vehicles, and Lord's Grace allows cars only. Move Mountain View is the county's contracted service provider for all Mountain View safe parking program sites. The City of Palo Alto adopted an interim safe parking ordinance in 2019 and a permanent safe parking ordinance in February 2024. Best practices learned from the implementation of the interim ordinance were incorporated into the permanent ordinance and include holding staff-hosted community meetings and providing neighbor noticing requirements for safe parking operating permits, having nighttime quiet hours, lot monitoring practices, and annual reports for site operation. The County of Santa Clara leases property from the City of Palo Alto and contracts the nonprofit Move Mountain View to operate the safe parking program on Gang Road for up to 12 RVs. Next slide. This next section is intended to share what we will be bringing to our council study session on safe parking. The criteria for council consideration includes locations. Industrial and commercial location examples include offices, warehouses, manufacturing facilities. Commercial sites could include retail. Public facilities, location examples include city and county-owned property. And quasi-public examples are the parking lot of a church, a nonprofit, or other place of assembly. Some sites may not allow RVs depending on the location. Rotating safe parking programs are often run by faith-based organizations and allow participants to park at each location for a specific amount of time before moving to the next location. Stationary programs remain at a fixed site. We'll discuss options for program operations, 24/7 and overnight sites. While we do not have an exact count of how many people are residing in their passenger vehicles in Sunnyvale, ensuring that persons residing in both passenger vehicles and RVs can access the program is important. We'll discuss required services and program guidelines, such as having quiet hours overnight to reduce noise disturbance, and ensuring personal property that is stored in vehicles to help maintain a tidy site, prevent an unkept or blighted appearance, and decrease the likelihood debris will accumulate. We'll also discuss not allowing open flames or fires on site, as well as how sites are permitted, monitored, and how neighbors will be noticed. If council approves programs that allow both passenger and RVs, we would then refer to our proposed ordinance in the program as the safe parking program. Okay. Next up, we'll go through the timeline of events. So right now, we are still in the early phases of this study session. Since I've started, I've been engaging with other cities on safe parking programs that are already in place, such as Mountain View, Palo Alto, Santa Rosa, Fremont, and then also the faith-based Silicon Valley rotating parking program in Saratoga and Cupertino, and Safe Parking LA. The County of Santa Clara's Office of Supportive Housing has also been a source of support and expertise as well. I'll continue my research and learning from other more experienced agencies and conducting site visits as we continue through the study process. Community outreach includes this meeting with faith-based and nonprofit providers later this week, and conducting interviews and gathering feedback from persons with lived experience and potential service utilizers in July and August. Another key aspect of this process is our collaborative, multi-departmental approach to exploring a safe parking ordinance. I'm working closely with our Department of Public Safety, Environmental Services, Public Works, Planning, Building, the City Manager's Office, and the City Attorney's Office to gather input and utilize their expertise as part of the outreach process and drafting of a future ordinance. We'll have a study session with council in September 2024 to share all of the feedback that we've collected from the outreach and interdepartmental meetings and request direction on the items discussed in the previous slide. We intend to bring the draft ordinance to council in winter 2024. The ordinance will allow safe parking programs to operate in Sunnyvale once approved. That concludes my presentation. I'm now going to share about each of the interactive areas that we have around the room and also explain to those of you who are online how this will work. Next slide. So we want to seek feedback from all of you who have joined us online and in person tonight. For those of you who are online, we will show you a QR code on the next slide. If you're on your phone, there will also be a link that you can copy and paste to your browser. The QR code and link will take you to an online survey that will have the same questions that we have for those who are here in person. Once you have completed the survey, you are welcome to log out. We thank you for taking part in tonight's meeting. We'll keep the QR code up for the next 10 minutes. For those of you who are in person, we'll have 3 questions for your consideration located at stations around the room. We invite you to walk over to each of the stations, grab a pen, write down your feedback and questions on the small Post-it notes located at each station. You'll find a city staff member located at each station who can assist anyone who needs help. I'll be walking around the room and stopping by each of the stations, and I'm here for questions. We'll be collecting your feedback to both present to council during our study session and to assist us in our next steps with the ordinance. Okay. Thank you all for being here tonight. That concludes the presentation.